Hi you guys, welcome, välkomna, добро пожаловать. My name is Salmansa Rogers. Today is Friday and we have another True Crime Stories with Sal. I hope you guys are doing well, taking care of yourself, taking care of your loved ones. Hope you have a great week overall this week. Staying healthy and safe as always. My goal for this month is reach 1,000 followers and I'm so close. We are at 980 something followers right now. So hopefully by the end of February I can reach 1,000. That would be amazing. And I just want to also thank you guys for taking your time and watching my videos and, commenting and what have you, showing love. And I so much appreciate you guys for that. And I love this little true crime community that we have. Today's case has everything you need to, like literally a Hollywood movie, a recipe for a Hollywood movie. We have drama, triangle drama, murder and jealousy, all of it combined. And yeah, it's a crazy one. It's a roller coaster. And just a little disclaimer before I start. As always, today's case is a brutal case, so I will be talking about dismemberment of a corpse, murder. And if that's something that you might not want to listen to today, please click out of this video and I hope I see you in the next one. And I also going to do, like I always been, I'm not going to reveal the victim true identity, just for privacy and respect to the victim's family and loved ones. So the names of the victim will be changed, but I will name the perpetrator's real name. Without any further ado, let's jump into today's case. Today's case is taking place in Askersund in Sweden. And the year is 2014. And by the picture here, Askersund is a small town close to Örebro. We're going to discuss the case of Jonna Henningsson. And at that time, at 2014, she was 25 years old. And a little background about Jonna. It's I would probably say Jonna and Jonna. So just FYI, I say it in Swedish and English. So throughout the video, if I do that, just FYI. But yeah, so Jonna was a pretty regular girl. She was the youngest of 4 siblings, and she grew up in Örebro. She loved horses. She was very good at it, so she was taking like riding lessons. I think you say that in English, yeah, And her hobby was basically horses. She also looked up to her older sister and she kind of like idolized her. According to Jonna, her older sister was her biggest idol. Throughout her school years, she was a very good student and very academically blessed. She was pretty much a straight A student, and the teachers were very fond of her, and they felt like she would have a great future ahead of her. She was very smart, and she had also a lot of friends. She was pretty popular. She had her friend group, and also in her early teens or like high school era, she had a steady boyfriend that she was together with. But then when they were about to go to college, they kind of like split up. So it was just like, throughout the high school, and then both of them went their separate way. On May 29th of 2013, Jonna was out bar hopping with some friends, and she met this guy who I will call John. And immediately she fell head over heels with John. He was funny, he was outgoing, or what have you. And even though she describes with her own words, she said that even though she had her steady boyfriend for years, she knows how it is to be in love with someone. But it was something different with John. It was kind of like a drug. He was a drug to her. That's her own words, quote unquote. He was like a drug to her. She fell madly in love with him. During that night out, they exchanged Facebook friend, or they, became friends on Facebook. And that week, John texted Jonna on Facebook and kind of like, start conversation with her. And then they start meeting up. And according to Jonna, they were meeting up like once or twice a week. And the relationship seems to flourish. They were very good, on good terms. They have fun together, and she was madly, madly in love. Again, this was something that she never ever felt before. And also, John was very good at showering her with words. He would basically tell her that I can see a future with you. I can see you being the mother of my future children. I can see us getting married together. And of course, as a young woman, and being in love with someone, and it's the love of your life basically telling you this, it's kind of like a rush, like you're feeling so special and so loved, and it's yeah, it's a great feeling, and that's exactly how she describes it. After a few months of 2013, so closer to Christmas, so December 2013, John started to display some coldness. Like, he became a little bit more distant. It was now Jonna that was always calling him, and he was kind of like, distant. He blamed it on work, or he was tired, or what have you. He was not as, interested in her, and, calling her, or what have you, try to meet up with her as he usually was. And eventually their relationship kind of like faded. I also don't really know if they ever went like, officially boyfriend and girlfriend, or if it was always kind of like a hookup situation. I don't know. But anyway, so their hookup situation faded away towards December of 2013. And then beginning of 2014, John went on a vacation with some friends to Thailand. And after he came back from Thailand, he contacted Jonna back again and basically told her, I miss you, let's meet up. How are you? How have you been? What have you? And during this off season, Jonna said that she felt super depressed, and she was super sad over the relationship. She was also confused because one day he's showering her with love. He sees her as his future wife, and the other day he's just cold, doesn't reply to her text messages, doesn't want to see her. So she was kind of like confused, didn't understand really what was going on. But when he restored the contact with her after Thailand, she was of course head over heels again and super happy. So she went over to his apartment to meet up. The next day, Jonna had plans with her friends to go out, and so she did. They went out, and Jonna became super, super drunk, and she kind of like foolishly just went to John's apartment without any of his knowledge or without giving him a heads up. So she kind of like showed up there, and he was not home, so she was waiting for him outside his apartment. And as soon as he arrived, he was shocked to see her. He came home from work, and he's like, what are you doing? And then he immediately saw that she was drunk, and he was like, oh my God, like, this is, you should go home. What's going on? But according to Jonna, she doesn't remember much details of that evening because she was super drunk. So she just felt like it was fun, that she just came and surprised him. He let her in, but as soon as they went inside, John got a phone call. And she could clearly hear a female voice on the phone, and that the voice of the female was very angry, basically saying, how can you allow your ex to, this late at night, what are your ex doing there? So according to Jonna, John referred her as his ex. So then immediately John hangs up the phone, and he's like, listen, I need to take you home. You need to get out of here. And as soon as they were out on the parking lot inside of John's car, about to drive off to Jonna's apartment to give her a ride, the girl that was on the phone with John emerged, and I would call her Madeline. So Madeline was there. She just, she came, and she was super furious when she sees Jonna in John's car, and she just like tried to open up the door. She's screaming at John. And again, the details of this evening is all from Jonna's perspective, and she was super drunk, so she doesn't really remember how they ended up driving away, but they did. So they drove away. John gave her a ride to her apartment, and he left her. And after that incident, John didn't talk to Jonna for like a month or so, for a few good weeks. He was super pissed about the whole situation and that she just came out unannounced, super drunk, and basically embarrassed him, what have you. And Jonna felt again into this deep depression. She felt super bad. She regretted that she just showed up unannounced to his apartment. And yeah, she was just super sad. Approximately 4 months passed until John contacts Jonna again. And this was in early April, and he again contacts her out of the blue, like nothing happened. He missed her, he want to see her, and what have you. And of course, since John is Jonna's drug, as she describes him to be, she accepted his invitation to go over to his house. So she did. She went over. Again, they watched the movie. She slept over the night. And soon as you know it, they're back on track again, back on meeting each other. But this time was more like every day. So basically, she kind of like almost lived at his apartment. I think also she got a spare key to his apartment so she can come and go as she wanted. So basically, they're back again together, and he's again that super duper sweet John that she knows, showering her with love words or what have you, and she's just madly in love. And then a month after that, in May, she and her friends are going to Germany for a friend's wedding. And when she's in Germany, she still, talks to John regularly on the phone or what have you. And they also have each other on Snapchat. And okay, I was never a fan of Snapchat. I used it vaguely, but I don't know exactly, all of the details of Snapchat. But apparently back then in 2014, you had like a best friend list or something, and the people that you talk to most on Snapchat, they will like end up on the priority list, like the top list of your conversation. That's how I best understood it. So one night when Jonna is in Germany, she sees that John's priority list is Madeline. She's on top of his best friends list on Snapchat, and that indicates that they are the ones that have been speaking to each other the most. And she is again kind of like get this feeling in her gut feeling that he sees her while she's out of town. She gets mad. She, of course, get sad about it, and like, how dare he? As soon as I leave, he contacts Madeline again, and so on and so forth. And also, when she was in Germany, she felt weird. So she felt kind of nauseous. Her stomach was weird, and she first blamed it on, the new food that she ate. She also drank every day, according to Jonna. They were partying every day, drinking, eating German food, as she was saying, and she felt like maybe it was the food, like maybe her stomach didn't, really react good on the food that they had there, or the alcohol, or all combined. But when she returns back from Germany, she actually does a pregnancy test, and the pregnancy test reveals that she is pregnant. And this is no happy news for Jonna at all. She doesn't want to have a baby. And not right now, especially where the situations are unclear to, if she is going to be with John or if he's going to choose Madeline, what have you. And when she breaks the news to John, he reacts the same way, but even more so, saying to her, quote unquote, like, run to the hospital and, immediately do the abortion. And this kind of like threw Jonna off a little bit. Sure, she didn't want to have a baby either, but he was more like aggressive and pushing it. He was really almost like disgusted by the fact that she is pregnant. According to Jonna, John also fell into kind of like a depression after finding out that Jonna was pregnant, and she felt very bad for him, and she didn't want him to kind of like suffer or be depressed. So she told him that she booked an appointment, she had the abortion, and so he could kind of rest. But in fact, she didn't book an appointment. She hadn't had an abortion. She just felt like she wanted to do it on her own time and terms. She didn't want to be pressured. She didn't want to be stressed about it. So she felt like if I tell him that I have done it, he would put it to rest and go by his life or what have you, and I can do it on my own terms. One evening when Jonna was out kind of partying with her coworkers, they had like a coworker event or what have you, they went to this bar. Accidentally, Jonna met John and Madeline at the same bar. So they all three were back together face to face. This is the second time Jonna and Madeline meet. The first time was in the car when Jonna was drunk and John was about to give her a ride home. And this time John was very, very drunk. And Jonna and Madeline kind of talked to each other, and then they decided to confront John, basically face to face. Now that all three are together, face to face, who are you going to pick? Is it going to be me or her? So basically give him an ultimatum. And according to Jonna, John was very drunk. He couldn't answer them, and he basically told them that he is fond of both of them. He likes both of them. He cannot pick them. He cannot pick just one. And throughout that evening, John's friend, who also is a female, he was apparently with his friends or what have you, girls and guys. She noticed that Jonna was acting weird. Basically, she was kind of feeling nauseous and what have you. She left to throw up and what have you, even though she wasn't that drunk. So John's friend asked Jonna, are you pregnant? Because according to Jonna, this friend of John's is a mother of two. She has children, so she kind of knows how it is to be pregnant or what have you, or being the early stages of pregnancy, the sickness or what have you. So she confronted her or asked her, and Jonna replied to this friend of John's, yes, I am. And the friend immediately told John, said that, that Jonna is pregnant. And the next day, John basically confronted Jonna and told her, how dare you? Why did you lie to me? You said you did an abortion, or what was going on? And she basically explained to him how she felt. She just said it because she felt sorry for him. He was super stressed. He was super sad about it. She didn't want to worry him. She just said that she did it to kind of stop his worry, but she will do it eventually on her own terms. And this, instead of being mad at Jonna, John kind of became super duper sweet to her. According to Jonna, he felt sorry for her in some type of way, and he, showered her with love. He basically kind of took care of her throughout this pregnancy period. And one night she actually suffered a miscarriage. So she went to the bathroom, she started bleeding, and she herself figured I think this might be a miscarriage. She took a pregnancy test again. Turns out that she was negative. So she never really went to the hospital to, completely to check it out. Are you pregnant? According to Jonna, this was just, she took a pregnancy test at first, shows positive. Now she started bleeding. She took it as a miscarriage, and she did another test, and it showed negative. As soon as Jonna told John that she got a miscarriage, his demeanor switched back to the mean, the cold John. And the last night that she spent at his apartment, his phone, they were laying in bed watching TV, and his phone was ringing, and he picked up, and it was Madeline. So he took this call in the kitchen, and Jonna just felt a huge sorrow. She felt betrayed and sad. And then when he came back, she kind of confronted John about it. Why would you pick up? You said that you guys broke up. You chose me. What's going on? And John was and she said also I want to go home. I'm going to go home. And John was like, no, don't do that. Stay. I'm sorry. I would not pick up the phone again. We are not together, me and Madeline. I don't know what she called, and yada, yada. The next morning, Jonna woke up early, and she kind of left the apartment. And as soon as she arrived home, she regretted her decision. She felt like she was too dramatic. She felt, she just wanted to go back to John. So she texted John, "Hey, I'm so sorry for leaving so early. I don't know what's going on. I just felt some type of way, and what have you." And John replied to Jonna like, "It's okay, no worries. But at this point, I feel like I wanted to be alone to think." And this is the first time ever in their tumultuous relationship, their back and forth relationship, whatever you want to call it, that John ever told Jonna that he wants to be by himself to think. So this was not good news for Jonna at all. So she felt like this could be possibly that he wants to figure out who he's going to choose again. Possibly Madeline is back in the picture. They possibly see each other behind Jonna's back, or what have you. So Jonna felt like she needed a plan. She needed a plan to get him back to that sweet, loving, caring John, basically feeling sorry for her in her own words, quote unquote. She wanted him to feel sorry for her. And so what she did is, yeah, it's just crazy. So a little bit graphic, so just FYI. So basically, she took a knife in her apartment, a kitchen knife, and she cut herself in the stomach, kind of like basically giving herself a C-section. And after cutting her stomach, she sewed it back up, and she basically, after a few days, went back to John's apartment to show him the wound and said that she's been spending the time this past few days in the hospital. She had some complication with her miscarriage, and they had to, kind of do a little small surgery on her. But instead of feeling sorry for Jonna, John was just like, kind of like almost, fed up with her, and he demanded his key back to his apartment, the spare key that he gave her. He demanded the key back, and basically said, like, I need some time to think. I need some time to be by myself. And this was, of course, not the reaction Jonna was expecting. She literally thought that he's gonna, embrace her with his open arms and be like, "Oh my God," and be loving the lovey-dovey John that she yearned for. The next few days, Jonna was thinking she needed a second plan, a plan B. She was desperate to get John back, and she basically cooked up this whole plan. And before I tell you guys about this plan of hers, I just want to quickly circle back to the Madeline girl. So just, I don't think I ever spoke about who she was. So Madeline was a girl that John, I believe, according to the sources, was dating in high school. So they were like high school sweethearts. They broke up, they got back together, they broke up, and I think a year or 6 months prior to him meeting Jonna at that bar, him and Madeline was broken up. So Madeline and John has a history together. So Madeline is not just some girl that he met on the side when he was with Jonna. So they had a history together. They were high school sweethearts, and they were just back and forth. Their relationship were back and forth. So the plan that Jonna had in mind was basically to go over to the apartment where John lives, because he knew that Madeline was staying there, and she wanted to kind of scare her to basically leave John. And her plan was to go over there, to knock her out unconscious, to give her a syringe with sleeping, like a vodka and some sleeping pills, like a little cocktail that she did, and in a syringe, go over there, knock her out, inject her with the syringe, and leave her there. And basically, according to Jonna, in her head, this would be kind of like a warning, like she felt like Madeline knew who did that to her, and this would scare her to basically kind of like, she would understand that this is a warning, I'm warning you, leave John alone, or whatever. And also another thing that I forgot to mention is that prior to this plan, Jonna actually texted Madeline, I believe on Facebook. She wrote her a message, private message on Facebook, basically telling her to leave John alone, and telling her that, John is, he deserved to be with someone like her, like Jonna, very sweet, very loving, very caring person who would forgive him, who would never talk down to him, who's very calm. And according to Jonna, Madeline is this, she talks back to John. She's very vulgar, and her mouth is very vulgar. She's very passionate when she talks. She's not afraid to talk back. And John deserves basically someone that is more submissive to him. And Jonna didn't feel like Madeline was that type of girl. But Madeline didn't reply to Jonna's Facebook message. Instead, she told John, and John told Jonna that, yeah, Madeline received your message, but she just thinks you're crazy and pathetic, and that this is, she doesn't care what you wrote. You're just crazy and pathetic. Now that Jonna knows how Madeline feels about her, she has even more reason to get this plan B over with. So on June 18th, Jonna is heading over to John's apartment where she knows Madeline will be at. And in her bag, or with her possessions, she had a hammer, two syringes, one with vodka and one with vodka and sleeping pills, or basically a cocktail that she did herself. And then she also have like a little knife. And she drives over to the apartment, and according to Jonna, she sits in her own car for a little bit and kind of thinks over, like, am I really going to do this? Am I going through this? And again, this was, according to Jonna, only there to scare Madeline. She was only there to scare her, to knock her unconscious, stick her with those syringe needles, and leave her to be. And then this was also early morning, by the way. So after a few minutes, she's sitting in the car contemplating, should I do this, should I not? She then gets out of the car, and she heads over to the apartment, and she kind of stands in the hallway to the door, to the entrance door of the apartment, and she's standing there for a few minutes. And then after a few minutes, she feels like, okay, you know what, this is ridiculous. What am I doing here? I'm going to leave. And as soon as she felt like was about to leave, the door to John's apartment opens up, and it's Madeline. And at this point, Jonna is just panicking. She sees Madeline getting out of the apartment, and she's just about to, she closed the door, about to lock the door behind her. That's when Jonna jumps right behind Madeline. She knocks her unconscious, or she knocks her down with the hammer. And in Jonna's mind, this blow to her head will basically, Madeline should be unconscious. But instead, Madeline is not unconscious, and she turns around, she sees that it's Jonna, and she starts screaming basically bloody murder. And at this point, Jonna is, giving Madeline some more blows, and kind of wants her to stop screaming, because this was not according to the plan. She was about, in her mind, one knock and she would be knocked out. One blow to the head, she would be knocked out, but it didn't happen. So it's a commotion going on. Madeline is screaming bloody murder. Jonna is continuing, just throwing hammer punches at her. And at one point, Jonna's like, okay, I need to get her out of this hallway. So she drags Madeline back into the apartment. And as soon as she closed the door, she can hear the doorbell ringing. And apparently it's a neighbor that hears this commotion. So the neighbor comes out that lives across the doorway from John's apartment. She started ringing the doorbell to kind of hey, are you guys okay? And in all of this commotion, the doorbell rings. Madeline is still screaming. She drags Madeline into the bathroom, and she starts basically hitting her some more. And she starts stabbing her with the syringes. But of course, Madeline's putting up a fight, so she doesn't move. She doesn't stand still. And Jonna could see that one of the syringes is basically broken and is stuck in Madeline's neck. And Madeline's still conscious. She's still fighting for her life. The doorbell is still ringing. Throughout all of this commotion, Jonna was keep telling Madeline, please be quiet, I will stop hitting you if you just be quiet. But of course, Madeline was not quiet. She put up a fight. She was screaming, and she did the most. And still, the doorbell was still keep ringing. It was more aggressive. So Jonna just panicked. She grabbed the hunting knife from John's kitchen, I believe, and she proceeded to go back to the bathroom where Madeline was, and she stabbed Madeline just to get her quiet, and that worked. As soon as Madeline was stabbed, she stopped screaming. She stopped fighting. According to Jonna, she only recalls stabbing Madeline once, and but according to the autopsy report, Madeline was stabbed 17 times. And not only that, Madeline had major skull fracture. She was missing a lot of her teeth, and she had several syringe marks, so syringe stabs around her neck, throat area. Yeah, so it was definitely a gruesome kill, and it was according to the autopsy report, a poor Madeline basically felt or suffered through all of the stabs and all of the blows. So it was a painful death. Basically, the death was not quick and easy. It was a painful death, and Madeline definitely felt all of the blows and all of the stabs. When Jonna realized that Madeline was dead, she quickly, rushed out of the apartment. She took her car and went back to her house, to her home, to pick up a big bag, like a big grocery bag. And she then drove back to John's apartment to clean up the mess. So her plan was to clean up the apartment because after all, this was all in John's apartment, and she didn't want John to come home and witness all of this. So her plan was to stuff Madeline inside of that big grocery bag, and basically, I don't know, bury her body somewhere. But when she returned to the apartment, she quickly realized that Madeline's body was not that easy to carry. It's pretty heavy, and so she decided to go back home and grab IKEA bags. And for those that guys know, I use IKEA bag for my laundry. So they're pretty big, so you can fit a lot. So she decided to go back home and grab some IKEA bags from her apartment. And on the way back, so she went back home and then went back to John's. On the way back to John's, she also brought a saw. And she was speeding on the highway, and it was a highway patrol police car that stopped her because she was on the 70 road, and she was driving 79. So the highway patrol stopped her, and she felt like, oh my God, they're going to know, they're going to realize what I've done. Especially, she also had the saw right next to her in the passenger seat. But the cop didn't ask her, he didn't suspect anything. He just gave her a speeding ticket, and she was on the way. She didn't tell the cop nothing that what happened, what she was about to do, or what have you. After that, she returned back the second time to John's apartment. This time, she uses the saw to dismember Madeline's body in pieces, so that way it's easier for her to carry Madeline out of the apartment. So she dismembers her, and according to Jonna, she describes this part as she doesn't recall her doing it. She kind of had like an out-of-body experience where she was standing, she saw herself, she was basically standing behind herself. So she saw herself, like she saw the back of herself, and she saw her motioning, like sewing off or what have you, but she doesn't recall the part, like the graphic details of what she was doing. After when she was done, she cleaned up the place, and she took all of the equipment, all of the murder weapon that she used. She put Madeline's body into the IKEA bags and put her body, a dismembered body, into the back of her car, so the back trunk of the car. And so next, she drove her own car. So Jonna drove her own car with Madeline's dismembered body in the trunk. She drove her out, parked her own car in like a grocery store parking lot or what have you. Went back to the apartment, knocked on the neighbor's door, and just kind of like telling the neighbor that everything was okay. I was just fighting with a girl. She's gone now, what have you. The neighbor was concerned because she thought that John was basically hitting her, or like something bad happened, that John was abusing her. She said, no, John is not home. He's at work. I just had a fight with the girl. Everything is okay. We're fine. So the neighbor said, okay, great. Close the door. Jonna then, wrote a letter, wrote a little note. I'm going to insert the note here. And the note is, of course, in Swedish. For my Swedish followers, you guys can pause this video, just read the note. But I'm just going to translate it so you guys basically understand. She said to John that she was at the apartment. She wanted to get her last things that was in the apartment. And she was met by a very aggressive and angry Madeline. And that basically Madeline reminds her of him when he's mad, and that they are very good together. She can see why he basically chose Madeline over her, because they're like the same people. Basically, they're good for each other. But she's always going to love John no matter what. And basically like a goodbye letter. And she then wrote the letter, left it on the counter, took the last of her things, her makeup or what have you, that she had there over at John's, and she tossed the key in the mailbox, and she left. She drove away with Madeline's car. So she took Madeline's car and drove out to her work. And at this time, she worked at a horse she was taking care of horses, basically. So that was her job. And according to Jonna's coworkers, they didn't recall any weird, Jonna didn't act weird to them, but they noticed that she had a deep cut in her, kind of like by her thumb, like inside of the palm here. And they like, you should definitely go to the hospital and get that checked out, because it looks deep. So one of the coworkers, so Jonna and one of her coworkers, went to the emergency room and had her hand stitched up. And while they were there, Jonna get a phone call from John, because now John returned back to his apartment. He noticed the note, and he tried to get hold of Madeline. She doesn't answer, so he calls Jonna and asks, like, hey, I'm at home. I saw your note. What's going on? I try to get hold of Madeline to figure out what happened, why was she so mad, but she doesn't answer. And Jonna said, I don't know, I took my things, she was mad, I took my things, I left. When she hung up, she immediately started panicking, and she felt like, I cannot work. She was actually scheduled to work like too late, like a late evening shift to take care of the horses. So she basically had one of her coworkers to kind of like work instead of her. She asked her she doesn't feel good. She needs to go home. And the coworker said, okay, sure, I'll take over. When Jonna left her work, it was approximately around 5 p.m.-ish, 4:30-ish p.m. And she was driving Madeline's car, and she basically felt like, I need to get rid of this car. I don't want anyone to see me driving it. So she drove off to a train station and parked Madeline's car at the train station. From the train station, she took a bus back to the grocery store parking, where she parked her own car, where Madeline's body parts were still in the trunk. After that, she went back home. She got a shovel, and on the way back she was basically trying to find a dumping area to dump Madeline's remains. And on the way, she called her sister. And remember, in the beginning of the video, I told you that she idolized her sister. She loved her sister, her older sister. And she basically told her sister that she went to John's apartment to get her stuff. Madeline was there. They were arguing, and Madeline attacked her with a knife and cut her thumb. But then she grabbed the knife from Madeline, and she stabbed Madeline in kind of like the shoulder blade, neck area, and she panicked and left. And according to Jonna, her sister said, you need to contact the police. God forbid something happened to her. They're going to find her. Don't worry. You didn't do nothing wrong. You just defended yourself. Don't worry. They're going to find her. Just contact the police. As soon as she heard those voices from her sister, that was kind of like a relief to Jonna. She felt that, okay, I will call the police. This is going to be okay. Mind you, still, she is very clearly have the dead body in her trunk. She is out here scattering, an area to dump the body, and still she thinks that, oh yeah, they're gonna find her, everything's gonna be good. Anyway, so she finds this secluded area, secluded road. She drives on the road, and at this point, according to Jonna, she was just exhausted from the whole day. The night prior to this, she didn't sleep well as well, so she was just exhausted. She actually never used the shovel. She never dug a grave. She just kind of like put the IKEA bags and hide them, put them against like a rock, or I think it was like a little rock, and basically hide them with some tree leaves or like some grass or what have you. But it's like a superficial hiding place, but not like she didn't have the power to dig. Right after she did that, she called the sister again, and the same thing. The sister's like, contact the police. They will find her. Everything will be good. And so Jonna went home. She called the police and basically told the police the same thing that she told her sister, that she went to John's and his then girlfriend, or his new girlfriend, met her. She was angry. She attacked her with a knife. They fought, and Jonna stabbed her and ran out of the apartment. And then when she came back to the apartment, the girlfriend was gone, and she didn't know where she's at. She's worried about her. She also told the dispatch that John and Madeline's mom was contacting Jonna and asked about where Madeline's about, and because she was the last person to see Madeline. And the dispatch, she sent over two policemen. The police took Jonna back into the station to kind of have like a talk to her further, because she was the last person to see Madeline, and so she could get a statement exactly on what happened. But then also the police kind of saw some inconsistency in her story. For instance, that time when she was stopped for speeding, when she, according to her, returned back to the apartment to see if Madeline was okay, she was speeding, and she told the police that, yeah, she got a speeding ticket. The police asked her, why didn't you then tell the cop what happened, that this woman, that this, the new girlfriend of your ex attacked you with a knife? That would be a great time to tell the police. But she basically didn't have any excuse. She just said, I don't know, I didn't tell them, So the police, after, interviewing Jonna some more, realized that it was, a lot of inconsistency in her story. And then 3 hours into the interview, Jonna basically broke down and told them what really happened, that she murdered Madeline, and that she dismembered her body, and that she drove where she dumped the body later. While Jonna was in custody, they also seized her phone, and they also seized her computer, and they could find some very damaging evidence against Jonna. She was basically Googling how to get rid of a body, best place to dump a dead body, and stuff that regular people maybe not Googling about. In 2016, Jonna's trial began, and in the beginning they actually did a psychiatric test on Jonna to see if she was mentally unstable or what have you. Turns out that she was perfectly normal, perfectly fine, and that she maybe was suffering from depression. She later on told in court that ever since she grew up, she was told to not show her feelings when she is sad. Like, so if you feel sad or depressed or what have you, or feel down, you should not show your feelings. You just keep them to yourself, and don't let anyone know about it. So she was saying that this breakup with John, or this tumultuous relationship back and forth, really got to her, and she really felt sad and depressed, and that resulted in her decision to do this to Madeline. She was also saying she was very sorry, and that if she could switch places with Madeline, she would. It doesn't go a day where she thinks of Madeline and regrets what she did to her. Jonna was sent to life in prison, and if you already watched my previous Swedish cases, you already know life in Sweden is like 15 to 16 years. So she got 16 years, and So I also found an interesting article that apparently Jonna fell in love with one of her inmates, another girl, and the girl spoke out about this situation. At first, Jonna was very like kind of like friendly to her. They were exchanging letters or what have you, or like they writing notes to each other. And then after a while, the notes became more sexual, more like kind of like Jonna expressing her love for this girl, and it at some point it became more like of obsession. And that girl had to change prisons, so she could no longer be her cellmate, and she had to change to another prison because it became that obsessed. Like Jonna became just obsessed with this woman. And even when she switched to a new prison, Jonna still kept writing to this girl and basically threatening her that she gonna send some people from her prison to hurt her brother if she doesn't do such and such for her, what have you. This girl, of course, told the police, and they dealt with that. And she also put a restraining order against Jonna. So yeah, that's the last known fact about Jonna. I believe she's still in prison. She's still serving her 16 years. Unfortunately, there were no information about Madeline and her background and what have you. The only thing that was said was that she was John's ex, and that they know each other since high school. They were high school sweethearts and then broke up and got back together, what have you. But yeah, this that was basically it for this story. So sad that a young woman, Madeline was only 22 when she died, when she got murdered, had to lose her life because of this triangle drama. Life is so much precious. That's kind of like the other story that I covered, also from Sweden. It was a German woman, and was obsessed. Like, life is so much precious and so beautiful. You don't have time to be obsessed with someone that doesn't want you, or playing games. Like just especially not murder someone over someone else. I also want to point out that this whole situation was, according to the prosecutors, premeditated. Even though Jonna said that her plan was just to knock Madeline out and kind of like, scare her, but she knew exactly what she was doing when she was hitting her with the hammer. She had plenty of time to not do so, even though she said she asked Madeline to stop screaming. If she stopped screaming, she would stop hitting her. But then that she had time to go to the kitchen and grab the knife to stab her. And she knew exactly, like, if you stab someone in the neck region, neck area, that it's like a deadly stab. So yeah, so definitely this was premeditated. The Google search the previous night of how to dispose of a body, where to stab, where to bury a body, or so on. All of that shows that Jonna was clearly planning on killing Madeline. Well, that, my friends, is the tragic story of this group, this 3 people. One had to lose their life, and this could easily just be avoided again. Don't play games with people, like, especially, when it comes to love. People do crazy things for love, apparently, or. But yeah, God, I don't know. Yeah, so much to say, but again, who am I? Just a YouTuber. So I'm here to tell the story, and you guys be the judge. Let me know what you guys think of this crazy story. If you have future story suggestions, I'll leave them in the comments. And again, thank you so much, my darlings, for spending your time with me, if it's a morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time it is at your place. If you are about to leave comments, remember, always keep them nice and positive, because you never know who's reading my comments, watching the video. And we have so much hate and hostility and just nastiness in the world. We don't need that here in my little community, our little family. Let's keep it all love and all positivity. Possibility too. Okay, my darlings, I hope I see you next Friday. Take care of yourself, love yourself, take care of your loved ones. And yeah, thank you again for watching my video. Subscribe, like, and share. Ciao, cacao.